Morning edition of SEC Sidelines Sports Network. Got a great show in store for you today. Kevin Scarbinksky, the Birmingham lead, United States Basketball Writers Hall of Fame inductee last April, the only one ever from the state of Alabama. Hoophead is what he calls himself, and people like him. He'll be with us. Coach John Brady, you know him, coached at Samford, LSU to the Final Four, Arkansas State. He is now the color analyst on the LSU Basketball Network. And look, he saw a great game the other night. And what is that? You got a lollipop?
I'm holding a cake pop because it's a birthday cake pop.
Yeah.
Because we're celebrating my 50th birthday on this show.
Yeah. Technically, it is your birthday. I thought it was 2 days ago.
No, it's Sunday.
Oh, okay. It's
so
right.
We're celebrating now. So
happy birthday. So because yesterday was my daughter's birthday. So you're the 25th of February.
I got it backwards. There you go. Happy birthday.
Halliday's
I got
birthday.
a cake pop for me.
Gotcha.
Okay,
all
sorry.
Right. Oh, no, you got to eat it. William Halliday, the intern, will check in with us in a while, too. The sophomore writer for the Auburn Plainsman. And Bo Carter out in Dallas, the former PR chief for the Big 12. Prior to that, the Southwest Conference, Mississippi State, National Football Foundation, Baseball Writers Association of America. Hey, got a lot to talk about. Get your tape recorder out. Take notes because we're coming at you right after this.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Oh, you're muted, Rob. Good morning.
Yeah, I muted myself again, man. Hey,
all right.
Kevin Scarbinksky is in Birmingham in the control center. Look at that background. That is an awesome set. Kevin, you know Buddy Martin. This is his son, Brendan Martin, our executive producer here on Sidelines. And so we're doing some new things, and we're going to be doing a lot of new stuff and doing some additional podcasts. Brendan, I mentioned it before the show started, the only sports writer in Alabama history to be inducted into the Basketball Writers Hall of Fame. I love his term. And Kevin, do it before someone else does. Get a copyright on that term, hoop heads, so you can do it for your T-shirts and hats and stickers or whatever. But Kevin, thanks for joining us this morning. And this SEC basketball race is fun. There's drama. It's everywhere. But I'm gonna let you take it from here, and I want to hear what you got to say, and so does everybody else.
Well, good morning, fellas. It's good to be with you again. It is a great time of year as we get here toward the last week of February.
Lost it.
And the start of March. Everybody knows what March Madness is all about, and it's particularly exciting here in the state of Alabama in the last handful of years, maybe more so than ever, at least as good, if not better than the great run in the 1980s with Sonny Smith at Auburn, Wim Sanderson at Alabama, Gene Bartow at UAB, three legends right there. And so to see the SEC
basketball race, there's a lot to talk about with it. And you know, I right now I think Alabama's going to end up winning the race because they got to go to Kentucky tomorrow and they got to play Tennessee next week or Tennessee. Those are the teams that I think are going to win it. And Kevin, we're not hearing your audio, so when you come back on here,
yeah, we got you. You there, Kev?
You got me?
Yeah,
we
got you.
Yeah, you guys got me?
I couldn't hear him there for a second, Brendan. So okay, Kevin, we started with the SEC basketball race, so let's try that again because my friend Mike Brennan is sitting down on the beach somewhere on 30A, Ole Miss Rebel, talk a little about my boy Chris Beard and the future of Ole Miss basketball before you leave. But let's get the SEC picture.
Well, and Chris Beard's a good example of why the SEC is so good and so deep. They keep hiring good coaches. look at what Todd Golden is doing at Florida in his second year. That team is dangerous. And that was an incredible game at Tuscaloosa, went into overtime against Alabama on Wednesday night. And Alabama did what championship teams do. They found a way to get it done in the stretch, to first of all, to come back, get it to overtime, and then win the game in overtime. But looking at it right now, obviously Alabama's a game up on Tennessee, but Alabama's got a tough closing stretch. You mentioned, Rob, Kentucky tomorrow. That's as big a game as there is in the country. And I know the Cats are not what they used to be, and a lot of grumbling in the bluegrass, and rightfully so, totally understandable. But they're capable. Look at what they did when they went to Auburn a week ago. So if anybody from Alabama thinks they're going to just walk into Rupp and walk out with an easy win, I don't think they understand the talent on that Kentucky team. Doesn't always play well together, doesn't always play defense, certainly doesn't play it like it did against Auburn on a consistent basis. Yeah. That's a dangerous game. Alabama's still got to go to Florida. That's going to be a dangerous game. As you said, Rob, Tennessee comes to Tuscaloosa a week from now. So they've got a really tough close. But Chris Beard, what he's done at Ole Miss, won their first 13 games of the season, created momentum, brought in good players. They're going to be a contender. They're going to be a tough out. They're going to win. And that's why this league, there really are no nights off, very few nights off where you can just expect to win. But yeah, the way those teams are separated, I think South Carolina, they're gonna drop some more games. You know, they're tied with Auburn for third at 9-4. Auburn without Jalen Williams, we don't know how long he'll be out. They say he will be back. We don't know when. We don't know how soon he'll be full strength again. That's a concern for them. But right now it looks like Alabama or Tennessee, and there's something about this Alabama team, guys. They score so quickly and so efficiently. And Mark Sears, if he's not the SEC Player of the Year, unless something changes over the next couple of weeks, I'll be surprised.
Well, you mentioned Kentucky, and I was very concerned. Worry's a wasted thing, but I was like, it's still Kentucky. They are the blue blood of blue bloods, highest winning percentage in the history of basketball. And it was just too easy for Auburn to have game day, dinner is served, just show up, and it's going to be a romp. It doesn't work that way. The talent that they have, Kevin, why can't John Calipari get those guys to play together? Is it a case of just too many Chiefs, not enough Indians? I mean, you've got to have something work on that team. And when they play, they shut Auburn down. 59 points at the Neville.
Well, and that's a point Bruce Pearl made, and it kind of got lost because Kentucky took control of that game early. And Auburn, they made a little run early in the second half. They were only down 7 when Jalen Williams got hurt, and then it kind of got out of hand again. But it never got completely out of touch. But, you hold Kentucky's offense to 70 points, as Auburn did, you should win the game, especially when you're playing at home in what's as good a home court environment as there is in the country. But it was the Auburn offense that fell down because Kentucky guarded. I know they haven't guarded like that most of the year, but they decided to play defense. And when they did, Auburn struggled. Its guards struggled. And that's my biggest question mark. It has been for a couple of years with Auburn, is the guard play. Yeah. Is it good enough to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament? When they're good, when Trey Donaldson is good, when Aiden Holloway has been good, they've been very good, but they've been inconsistent, especially Aiden Holloway, the freshman, has fallen off.
Yeah. Coach John Brady is going to join us in just a few minutes. And, of course, he's the color analyst on the LSU Basketball Network. I got to ask you something. I got some Memphis people and some people around that I know, some of my son's friends, and I've gotten to know these kids really well. Went to Mountain Brook, played for Bucky McMillan. Tucker Osborne's one of them. He's an attorney in Montgomery. He's like, Bucky's a special coach. Memphis, Penny, it's not happening. You think Bucky McMillan would take a job if offered, if Memphis were to make a change? Would he do well in a place like Memphis, his style, Bucky ball? And would Bucky's travel centers be his big NIL or supporter?
That would be a natural, wouldn't it? Look, yes. Bucky McMillan is as good I'm going to put one qualifier on it, a young, relatively new college head coach as there is in the country. And I am biased. I watched Bucky as a player at Birmingham Southern. under the great Dwayne Reboll, who's a Hall of Famer, who's now a consultant on Bucky's staff at Samford, a great fountain of knowledge. What they've done at Samford has been pretty amazing. They're 24-4.
Yeah.
They are 1 game away. They've got 3 games left in the regular season. They've got a 2-game lead, and they swept both of the teams that are 2 games behind them. So if they win here Saturday, they clinch their 2nd straight Southern Conference regular season championship. They clinch the number 1 seed in the conference tournament. And he is going to get phone calls. I have no doubt from different places across the country that are looking for a head coach who knows how to build a program. He did it at Mountain Brook. Mountain Brook wasn't a perennial power in basketball in the state. They won 5 state titles under Bucky. And here's another sign of a good coach. 2 of Bucky's former assistants, Tyler Davis at Mountain Brook, Christian Swears at Huntsville High School. They have their teams in the Final Four, which is next week here in Birmingham. I'm excited. I'll be the host all week long for the broadcasts of the high school state finals at Legacy Arena here in Birmingham. So, but when you're building a coaching tree and those guys are successful, that's not an accident. And they play, and look, Bucky ball is exciting. They press virtually the entire game. They go deep into the bench. Those guys come in, they play hard, they shoot threes, they run and dunk. And if you haven't seen the end of their win Wednesday night against Furman, which has kind of been their white whale to a small degree, for them to win that game the way they won it, Scott Van Pelt noticed on ESPN, and his best thing I saw today was the ending of the Samford Furman game. Watch that. Go watch that on social media. It's pretty exciting. And that's another thing. They've created excitement. The students are all about that team. Yeah. And it reminds me so much of John Brady when he got to Samford. That's how John and I got to know each other way back in the day. Yeah. And John did the same thing. He got the community involved. He got the students involved. They played a different style of basketball, but they played hard. They were fun to watch. And they won games at a place that does not have a great history of winning a lot of basketball games.
Well, John Brady and Birmingham, Lakeshore Drive, what they've done at Samford with Martin Newton. We had him on last year as a guest, their athletic director. And you know what I think is really cool about a writer like yourself? You appreciate the big schools, but you also appreciate the smaller schools just as much because there's good quality basketball. It's like those restaurants that are off the beaten path, you know, the drive-ins and diners with Firehead or whatever, that Guy Fieri. But what they're doing over on Lakeshore Drive is big time. I think and I love, and this is like Austin city limits, you know. Willie's up on stage, and he's going to call someone else, and, you know, Merle Haggard in the day, or Waylon Jennings will come up there. It's about to get really fun, like the Casadas or the Locusts, you know, when they start going, all this basketball talk. Is there a better sporting event than March Madness? It makes over $1 billion a year. How much more can it make if they added 8 or 16 more teams?
Well, first, to answer your question, no. There is no better sporting event in America on an annual basis than the NCAA basketball tournament. And it's for the reason that you just stated, Rob. It's big schools, it's small schools. There are great stories everywhere you look if you just look for them. There are great stories at Samford. There are great stories at Birmingham Southern. There are great stories, you know, UAB, Alabama, Auburn. And again, I'm so excited about where basketball is in Alabama. I know I sound like an evangelist of a sort, but
it's okay. Preach.
Hey, Alabama is the only state in the country that has not 1, not 2, but 3 members of the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee, commonly known as the Selection Committee. Martin Newton, the Samford AD, Greg Byrne, the Alabama AD, and Dr. McClellan, Charles McClellan. He's the commissioner of the SWAC. He is the chairman of the committee. So on Selection Sunday, he'll be the guy on television saying why this team didn't get in, why that team did get in, why is this team seated where. He'll have to field all those tough questions. And at the Birmingham Tip-Off Club on Monday, where I'm the MC, we've got all 3 of those guys in a roundtable discussion. We did it a year ago. We're doing it again on Monday. And what an incredible, again, well of basketball knowledge. And they give us some great insight into what happens behind those closed doors with the selection committee.
Well, you know what? I think you're right. The state of Alabama, Auburn or Alabama, have won the last 3 SEC championships in basketball. And you have to ask this question in a bigger role, but you as a writer will ask it. Is this Kentucky declining or Kentucky not responding to all these other schools in the SEC ramping up their game and investing more money and resources?
I think it's some of both.
Okay.
Look, if other teams weren't stepping up, and Rick Barnes, again, you go back about 6 years or so, what Rick Barnes has done at Kentucky, what Bruce Pearl has done at Auburn. What Bruce Pearl's done at Auburn, guys, if you look at the history of SEC basketball, you could make a case they are one of the worst programs in the history of SEC basketball all time.
Yes.
For example, before he got there, they won 20 games in the season. They won 20 games in the season in 108 years of basketball before Bruce Pearl 9 times. 9 20-win seasons.
9 times.
9 times. Ferris
9 times. Since he's been there, they've won 20 or more 6 of the last 7 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty astounding. But again, it's Rick Barnes at Tennessee, what he's done. And they've fallen way off, and I know they've got all kinds of issues at Arkansas. But look at what Eric Musselman's done with the Razorbacks in the postseason, especially the last few years. A couple of Elite 8, Sweet 16. Go across the board. Like I said, Todd Golden, a Bruce Pearl guy from his used to be on his Auburn staff. And then, of course, did a great job at San Francisco. Now, Florida is seeing what kind of a coach he is. He put together a roster. It took him a while to gel, but they are really dangerous right now. And it's just good. And Nate Oates, again, you talk about National Coach of the Year candidates. They lost, 5 of their top 7 scorers. They lost 2 first-round NBA draft choices, including the number 2 overall choice, Brandon Miller, who's starting to really show the NBA what he's all about. And they lost all 3 assistant coaches to head coaching jobs. I've never heard of that. I don't know if this ever happened before. So you're building a new staff, a new roster, and here you are, the last week of February, you're in first place in the SEC again. And if they win it, that's 3 out of 4 years, the regular season championship for Alabama. And they also doubled with the tournament championship in 21 and 23. If they double again this year, then there's no question who the best coach in the SEC is. It's Nate Oates.
Yeah, it is. And I think in the last 8 years, Auburn's won more basketball games than anyone in the SEC. Second is Tennessee. Now,
that's true.
John Brady's going to be on in a second. We had a link issue. And I don't know. I saw Barrett Sellee, who's a really good writer, put out on Twitter X last night. I don't know about what happened today, but is this a test run for something bigger? We don't need all these cell phones and all this IT stuff. We're going to have to go back to landlines. Can you imagine that?
What is it? I know there's all kinds of crazy conspiracy theories out there about what's happening. But is it? I mean, I hear sunspots. I know my allergies have kicked in way ahead of schedule. I don't know what's going on with the weather or whatever is causing this, but I'm glad we can still communicate. And listen, are we sure John Brady knows how to operate this kind of technology? Are we sure John? John's a great guy. He's not the most up to date modern kind of guy.
Yeah, in fact, he's going to be on in a second. Sometimes people get this via email or text, and that's on me, completely on me. But now I got a picture. Frank Duffy sent a picture Wednesday night walking into Pete Maravich Assembly Center, the PMAC, and it was Coach Dale Brown surrounded by some of his former players and John Brady on the other side of him walking in. That's 2 LSU coaches who took the Tigers to the Final Four. And they said, Dale Brown's going to outlive all of us. He said in that picture, he goes, he's got 4 siblings that are still living in their 90s. You can't, that's some good genes. I can just tell you that.
Oh, well, listen, there must be something to that. Look at all the legends of coaching. I mentioned the 1980s, and you had Wimp Sanderson at Alabama, Sonny Smith at Auburn, Dale Brown at LSU. Dale still likes to chide me for the column I wrote after he attacked Carlos Groves from Tennessee in the 1992 SEC tournament in defense of Shaquille O'Neal, like Shaq needed anybody to defend him from anyone. Yeah. And Dale just he saw his guy being pulled and pushed and hacked and whacked and nothing being done about it, and he was going to defend his guy. And of course, Dale was over the line, but almost ignited a brawl right there in the old BJCC. But he's still with it. It's great to see those guys still around, still contributing. You know, Wimp does a daily radio show in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, yeah.
I'm lucky to be a guest of his every Tuesday. Sonny Smith does Auburn basketball games on the radio as the analyst. You know, there's such, and I could go on and on. There's such a great well of knowledge with those guys. And they, you know what's great about basketball coaches too? And I've always contrasted football and basketball coaches this way. Basketball coaches, and it's changing a little bit, but they've been more willing to show their true personalities, not try to be corporate, not try to say what they're supposed to say. You know, you get more honesty. And man, if you watched the video of Bruce Pearl at the Birmingham Tip-Off Club on Monday, he said the NCAA talking about NIL and why the whole college sports major conference scene is in such a mess with the transfer portal and NIL. He said it's because the NCAA is ignorant and arrogant. Yeah. And if you didn't hear him, he doubled down and he said, "Yes, I said ignorant and arrogant." And that doesn't surprise any of us. I think we all would agree with that.
No, I think it's a great way of describing it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I commented last night on X about the NCAA is saying now you can't decorate a recruit's hotel room when they come in for a visit. I said, that shows you how serious they are about what? I have no idea. I sound like Rodney Dangerfield, but it's ridiculous. And John Brady is going to be with us in just a moment. But, what I see happening, and I like Nick Saban, what he said about NIL. This is not college basketball. This is crazy. But, I'm bringing him in. I will say no more. Here comes the Isaac Asimov of IT, Coach John Brady, a proud native son of Macomb, Mississippi. I got a great picture the other day of him and Franz Beard before the LSU-Florida game. But, Coach, what a game. That picture Frank Duffy sent me Wednesday night, that's legendary. Dale Brown and you, and I believe that's a couple of Dale Brown's former players or maybe some of your players, walking in to Pete Maravich Assembly Center. And then the way that game ended was unbelievable. But fellow hoophead Kevin Scarbinksky, y'all take over from here. I'm going to watch.
John, how are you?
Yes, sir, Kevin. How are you?
It's
well. One of the best writers ever.
Yep.
Thank you, my friend. Hey, listen, it's like old times again. Samford's rolling the way you had them rolling in the 90s. Alabama and Auburn are rolling like Wimp and Sonny had them in the 80s. I feel like I've gotten in the Wayback Machine.
It's called the circle of life, I guess. Bucky's got it going a lot better than I did. I mean, he surpassed me, and Jimmy had it going after that a little bit. But at least we laid the groundwork. And that's what we showed it could be done there, and started getting crowds and getting people involved and interested. And Bucky's just taking it to another level.
Well, that's what I told Rob, John. Some people, obviously, look, the SEC is the big dog in this part of the country. It's a big dog in any part of the country, and it's maybe as deep as it's ever been. And so, yeah, we pay a lot of attention to the SEC. But there are great stories everywhere you look if you just look for them. And what you created at Samford with Jimmy Tillett as your assistant, and then he succeeded you when you went to LSU, what you guys showed was possible at a place like Samford. And now, like you said, Bucky's taking it to another level, and he's a local guy. Rob asked me, he's going to have offers. Look, there's going to be teams looking for coaches that are going to say, hey, Bucky McMillan's got the right stuff. Hopefully there's a hometown discount there. He's a local guy. He played, obviously, for the great Dwayne Rebowl at Birmingham Southern. He's a local guy. And he made a great point. I've heard him say this several times. Being local, you feel more pressure. You want to win for your people. For the home people, for your students, for your friends in the community. You did it, and you really showed the importance of getting involved. Talk about that, John, what you did in the community, just to get people excited about Samford basketball, who maybe weren't before.
Well, Bucky was different from me because he had a built-in following in Mountain Brook. He grew up there. His dad's successful. Everybody knew the family. Everybody likes them. I came in there, and they didn't know me from Adam. And I think the first game we coached at Samford, I think we had 87 people in the stands or something ridiculous. And I went and shook hands with every one of them that were in the building. But, I started getting involved with the tip-off club. I met a good group of guys that really kind of that I made, and you know them all, about 8 or 10 guys I really made good friends with, and they helped me get our message out. And I remember I went to see Stanley Versiglio up at Piggly Wiggly up in Homewood there, and I wanted to start a tip-off club, and I wanted to feed them before the game, and I was going to come in and speak to them before every home game, and we had it in a classroom up in Osiris gym. And Mr. Versiglio, we went through the schedule and the games I wanted him to come feed, and he said, well, how you going to pay for it? I said, pay for it? I said, I want you to donate it. First time I ever met him. He looked at me funny. He said, Coach, I'll help you out. So Andy used to come deliver all the stuff before every game and set it up, and it was kind of primitive back then, but it kind of worked out. And, and you have to have good teams to really create that extra level of involvement. And we started putting a good product on the floor, and Kevin, you were big to help us. I mean, you were covering the big boys, and you stumbled in there one night, watched us play, and liked what we were doing, and you kept coming back, and your positive influence on the public helped us as well, and I'll always be grateful for that.
Well, like I said, it was a great story. And John, I'm interested to get your thoughts because you've been a part of SEC basketball in different roles, assistant coach, head coach, gone to the Final Four. Now you see the league as a broadcaster, a radio guy with LSU. How good is the SEC now in terms of its depth in compared to the long stretch of time that you've been a part of the league?
Well, I think the depth is good. I think it's more balanced than people think now, and I think it's going to be hard to. I hear the talk about 9 teams in the tournament. I'm not sure about 9 teams the way it's going. A&M's hanging on. Ole Miss is on the bubble. They're hanging on. They're kind of out. I don't know where you go to get past maybe 7, possibly 8. But I think the balance of it, used to, when you had a losing record in the league, you didn't get to go to the tournament. That was kind of a rule of thumb. Now, with all the analytics and KenPom and whatever they do all that, they don't really go on what you see as much as what you actually see on paper. I like to watch a team, but I think the SEC is outstanding. I think the style of play now is a lot different maybe than it was 20 years ago. They're spreading the floor and don't have a true center. I make the joke on the LSU network. I don't know if Shaquille O'Neal could have played in today's game in college. They'd have no need for a guy like that. So he certainly couldn't play for Nate Oates. I mean, the way they shoot it and run it. So it's a different game, but I think there's a lot of balance out there in the country. Every time I start feeling good about 2 or 3 teams that are dominating, they seem to lose. And I'm interested to see how it comes out in the SEC. The same way in the league, Kevin, this year, for some reason, every time I think a team's pretty good, they lose. But I think the consistency of Tennessee, the explosiveness of Alabama, South Carolina's been a surprise, but, we were able to get them up there, and so I think it brought them back down to reality just a little bit. They've lost 2 in a row, and then Auburn. Auburn is an emotional team to me, like their coach. I love Bruce Pearl, and I always say he's the most out-of-breath coach in the country because every time he looks like he's gasping for air on the sideline when he's yelling at his team. I love it. But, I think those 4 teams are the most consistent teams, and they have been. And then I'm not sure about A&M, Ole Miss, and where it falls. Florida, I'm not sure. I like Florida's guards. But it's going to be an interesting next 4 or 5 games to see how this league plays out and who actually is good enough to get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl.
How about this? How about the way LSU's played? They could win out. What if they win out and win a game in the SEC tournament? What happens? That's far-fetched, but stranger things have happened in college basketball, I suppose.
Well, I guess no one's better or has seen more of the ups and downs in the league than you. As you said, LSU's won they beat South Carolina there, beat Kentucky, and yet you saw Alabama score 109 against them on two different occasions. Are you surprised by what Alabama has done this year, given everything they lost? Not only the players, led by Brandon Miller, but all three assistant coaches getting head coaching jobs, and yet they're right there at the top of the league again.
Well, that's out of the Nick Saban playbook. You know, that Nate Oates loses a staff. Saban's always lost a staff and seems to just retool it and hire good people. And I think that's a tribute to Nate Oates. You know, Alabama, I tell you what about Nate Oates that I respect. You know, I told him after our game in Baton Rouge, there's a lot of different ways to coach the game and different ways to play. And I think a successful head coach determines what he's comfortable with and what he's
Coach Brady. Can you call back? We're getting a bad connection. I don't know if it's a problem from yesterday or not. We can barely hear you. If you'll come back on, Brendan. Okay, Brendan's going to bring you back in. Okay,
yeah, we'll bring him back in. It's his cell service, so it's his cell service. It's just a mess out there today, guys.
Yeah.
We'll do
I tell you what, I'm looking out my window and I see some black helicopters and some tinfoil hats. I don't know what's going on. Kevin, this is an unbelievable discussion, and I mean what you just said with Coach Brady. We're going to try to get this going, but it's about basketball and how you got the right people. The tip-off club in Birmingham. You know, you've got the rebounders. You've got the different clubs in Memphis, Auburn, whatever. This is a great thing. And I've always said this. If you want to have a great basketball program at a school like Alabama or LSU or Auburn or Ole Miss or Mississippi State, the fans need to get as mad after a basketball loss as they do after a football loss. Would you agree?
Yes, and look, SEC basketball for a long time was the best kept secret in college athletics. It was much better than a lot of people gave it credit for, and football tended to blot out the sun because of the passion for that sport and the success in that sport. And it's interesting. I've always thought, Rob, that you have to have a different mentality, I think, as a fan or as a journalist, an observer of basketball as opposed to football. You know, one loss in football, although this will change obviously with the 12-team playoff, one loss in football could doom you. So every loss for a program like Alabama or Florida, when it was, you know, winning championships, one loss felt like the end of the world. In basketball, one loss is never the end of the world unless it's the last loss of the season, the last game you play that season. Because look, even if you have a season, and John Brady made a great point, LSU has not had a great regular season, but they're dangerous. They could go to Nashville, win the tournament, and get into the NCAA tournament because they got hot at the right time. But first of all, you got to have the players and coaching to be able to do that. But if you do put it together, then you can completely overshadow your own regular season by having a great March. And that's always a great debate too. I heard someone ask, like it was an either or question, which it's not, which is more important in college basketball, regular season success or postseason success. And it's not an either or. You know, you want to be a program that's consistent in both, that you compete for championships in your league in the regular season, but you also make runs in March. And again, no one's doing that better than Nate Oates has the last 3 years at Alabama, winning both the regular season and the SEC tournament. And again, they are right there this season. So that's really what you want to see is that consistency across both. But yeah, it's not, there's no need to go out on the ledge. There's no need to turn on the gas, seal the windows. I mean, you know, when you lose a game in basketball, but at places like
I can relate.
Kentucky's been the one place where they've had that feeling, Rob, that it's like football, that every loss is Armageddon.
Yeah,
and you know the world's about to end, and there's Chicken Little running down the street in Lexington.
Yeah, and you know what though? You think about bottom line basketball. It doesn't take nearly the money, the financial commitment as football does. But your fans are, you know, they know basketball. It's not like people in the South don't know the game, but they also know when there's a lack of a commitment. And now you cannot find a school in the SEC that's not committed. I mean, Arkansas, That's a cluster fudge this summer. We know it. I've got friends of mine whose kids are in school up there. They've been telling me a while what's going on. That's, I'm getting into that on the show, but it's a mess. Okay. It's not our job. It's like, I got a lot of respect for my man, Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. Been doing this writing for about 38 years. He goes, I don't traffic in rumors. Neither do you. Neither do I. I mean, trust but verify. It's just a mess. It's bad chemistry. It's not working out. Last year, they had 3 or 4 guys off that team go to the NBA, but they were playing a game or two here and there and in and out. What I'm worried about for Arkansas is Eric Musselman saying, I've had enough of this mess. I'm out of here. You don't want that. That guy's an elite level coach.
Yeah. And again, that's that win now or else mentality that is a product of SEC football. Look, Eric Musselman has proven himself. You may not like his antics. I know opposing fan bases love to hate on him, but often because he's having more success than their program, or his team has beaten their program. He's showed he knows what he's doing. And look, it's been a disaster. And I'll tell you what, maybe a great example on the negative side of this roster turnover that you now see just about every year, just about everywhere, because of the transfer portal, because of NIL. You have so many options now as a player you didn't have before. And if you don't get the minutes that you expect to get, you transfer out. Great. And again, Alabama is a great example of this. 2 regulars from last year, Javon Quinterly, terrific point guard. He was the MVP of the 2021 SEC tournament that Alabama won. He's got 1 year of college basketball left. He decides to transfer to Memphis. He's having a very good individual season, maybe a little more up and down than they would like, but he's had a good individual season. He's getting a lot of minutes. He's the second leading scorer, et cetera, leading assist man. Then you look at Namari Burnett, who was a spot player for Alabama, played about 20 minutes or so a game. Very good defender, excellent defender. He transfers to Michigan. He's number 3 or 4 on the team in minutes. He started every game. He's in their top 3 or 4 scorers. He's had a great individual season. But Michigan is in last place in the Big Ten. God. And they may see the last of Juwan Howard as head coach after this year. Memphis has lost what? They was 6 out of 9 at last check. Yeah. They got stopped. Did you see the picture, Rob, on when they got run by SMU last weekend? And there's George W. Bush in this. Well, he's in the stands. He's standing up. He's got this massive chain around his neck with this giant medallion, an SMU pony medallion, and he has the biggest grin. He's having such a great time supporting the ponies in that game. And when you're Memphis, with the way they love basketball there and the tradition they have, you're getting run by SMU and George Bush is clowning on you. You got some issues. Yeah. So I don't know what's missing there, but something's missing. And those guys, that's a great example though. Those 2 guys leaving Alabama, good individual success this year, but team success not close to what Alabama's doing. So the grass isn't always greener.
Yeah, it is. And let me say something real quick. Speaking of Memphis, about one of our sponsors, rumbleboxinggym.com. Check them out on our website, 1835 Union Avenue, 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to noon, Saturday and Sunday. 48 people in these classes, 15 3-minute rounds, dumbbell work, calisthenics, hitting those 250-pound punching bags. The new general manager, we're going to be bringing him on the show hopefully next week. His brother plays for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. It's not Travis Kelce, I can assure you. He can stand up in public. But Rumble Boxing Gym, check them out on our website. Proud to have them as a sponsor. Go out there and release a lot of energy. And also the Vitamin Shop. We'll be there next Friday in Oxford at the Vitamin Shop in Oxford, Mississippi and Olive Branch, Mississippi. They're on the website as well. And ECS House Industries. It is harvest time. Kevin, I saw the South Africans a couple of nights ago at Walmart. They're already back. They're already getting the fields ready to plant. Unbelievable. House Industries located Cherry Valley, Arkansas, 99,000 square foot warehouse. They make all the technology that you see out there that makes America the most farm efficient country on the planet. The better roller, the pulverizer, the better chopper. They also make the aerators for the catfish farms. Check them out on the web, houseindustriesinc.com. Chad House and the great folks over there. Kevin, we're going to bring Bo Carter in from Dallas and William Billy Ray Valentine, the intern, Halliday from Auburn. Sorry about Coach Brady. And Bo looks like he's in the witness protection program. Are the lights out there? We're going to put one of those voices on there. Bo, can you hear? But Kevin Scarbinksky is on with us right now.
Always good to see Kevin.
You talk about, now, Bo is a great journalist, also teacher. Kevin, of course, with the Birmingham Lead, longtime writer for the Birmingham News, and also Scarbo Knows, his newsletter. Kevin, William is a sophomore writer for the Auburn Plainsman. A couple of weeks ago, our friend Maury Gaston took him to the back booth at Chappie's in Auburn, and he got to hold court and learn from the big guy, David Housel, who is the mentor to a lot of people. But William, you're on with some great writers. We've been talking some basketball, had some technical issues with Coach Brady's phone, maybe be a hangover from yesterday's IT meltdown, which I think is a test drive. I'm with Barrett Sallee. Who knows what's coming? But we've been talking a lot of basketball. William, you were at that Auburn-Kentucky game the other day. It was kind of like, hey, did they forget Kentucky still is Kentucky?
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously most of it was just missed shots. Denver Jones, one of the starting guards on the team, he had like 5 wide open shots he just did not make in the first half. And I thought that was a big thing because if he had gotten going, I think it would have been a close game throughout. There was a point in the first half where there was also one in the second half where we cut it close to like 5 or something. But in the first half, we went on a run kind of to cut it to like 2 or 3, I believe. But then we made 2 turnovers. 2 of them there were 2 in the first half by Chad Baker-Mazara. He went behind the back and tried to throw it to one of his teammates. And Bruce didn't take him out the first time. He should have taken him out, but he didn't. And he let him do it again. And the second time, it cost him another turnover to cost him, getting back into the game. But there was a point, like when it was 47-42 in the second half, I thought we had momentum and could have won the game or gotten it close. But, just Auburn shooting woes happened again. And this time at home when we usually have a scoring margin of 20 plus. So,
yeah. Bo Carter, you heard Kevin Scarbinksky talking about George W. Bush clowning Auburn with the Mr. T starter kit on. Yeah, clowning Memphis. I'm sorry. Memphis. SMU, a basketball superpower. Is that next? I mean, now I know when they pass the hat around, it's not like passing the hat around at other schools. They did a 7-day fundraising drive, Kevin and William, back in the fall. Once it was announced they were officially going to the ACC, I said, we're going to need some pocket change, some walking around money like Uncle Jed used to carry. By the way, Uncle Jed's wad was $250,000 back in the 60s. That'd be worth about $1.5 million today. But SMU raised $150 million, Kevin, back in the fall for athletics. Bo Carter, how serious are they out there in Texas, period, about their sports?
Well, 2 things. They still don't have baseball, which I still can't figure out. They dropped it in 1980. But they've got one of the nicest lacrosse fields in the world, unfortunately. But Kevin and Rob William, you guys probably noticed this. Things started going downhill for Memphis when Vanderbilt almost beat them. They lost. They won the game by 3 points.
Yeah.
You knew things were kind of going downhill there, but I hard to figure out what's going on over there. And SMU's playing very well. The second-year coach there's recruited well, and they've got some. I'm actually going to cover the American Athletic Tournament over in Fort Worth, so it's going to be some really good basketball. North Texas is in that too, and they've had some fine moments after winning the NIT last year.
Well, the AAC, I think that's a well-kept secret in basketball. That league, FAU is they're second or third now, but South Florida has shocked everybody. They're in first place. UAB has had a nice year, their first year in the AAC, along with the other new teams that moved over from Conference USA. That tournament is going to be wild. There's any number, you could probably pick one out of 5 or 6 teams could win that thing. So that'll be a lot of fun to see that one.
Well, I want to get all of y'all's thoughts on this too. The big picture college basketball. Everybody hits the panic button when their team loses a road game. Well, I'm watching UConn had to make that trip out there to Creighton Tuesday night. They got their butt kicked. Creighton plays good basketball. Kevin, what's different from what you see, basketball writer, Hall of Fame inductee that you are? We'll bounce it around. In Big East basketball or Big 12 basketball versus what we see in the SEC night in and night out?
Well, the easiest contrast is with the Big Ten. They play, even today, where everybody seems to play faster than they used to back in the day, or most teams do. They're still a power league, an inside-out league. And even in the SEC, a lot of teams, they want to get the ball inside first. But if they can run it, they're going to run it. If they can shoot it, they're going to shoot it. And Nate Oates, again, leading that vanguard of he's more likely to get mad at you as a player if you don't take a shot than if you take a bad shot. And he's done that with Latrell Wrightsell, who I think if you polled the Alabama fan base, 99% had never heard of him before this year. He's been a huge contributor, especially since he moved into the starting lineup. And I mean, he's great from deep. He's a little physical as a guard. He can play defense. So, the SEC has always had athletes.
Yeah.
That's what you expect in every sport in this part of the country. Really good athletes, really good high school programs, and it's important to them. Not only are they talented, but that's one thing we see. You see it at the grassroots youth level where I've had sons play, and I've been part of travel ball as a coach and a parent. You see it at the high school level. And again, we're going to have a great high school tournament next. Alabama was the first state in the country, guys, to have boys and girls, both, every classification at the same location for their semifinals and finals. That started back in 1994, I believe, and still going strong. And that's why we'll be there Monday through Saturday of next week, covering all the games. So I'll be the TV host. I'm looking forward to that. But it matters. And basketball matters. We know football matters. That's in the DNA of everybody that either was born here or grew up here or spent a lot of time here. But basketball matters too. And all you got to do is go in a gym, go in a high school gym, go to a travel ball tournament. Basketball matters very much in this part of the country as well. And you see some just amazing athletes in that sport.
Hey, William, you watch a lot of basketball when you're not studying to maintain that 4.0 GPA. What do you think about it? He mentioned Big Ten, and I always think of Purdue, or as Franz Beard of GatorBaitMedia.com calls them, Purdon't. They have not had a national champion come from that league since 2000.
Michigan
Tom
State
Izzo, hell of a
beat
coach.
Florida.
Yeah,
Yep.
and the
Michigan State beat
Flintstones,
Florida
they
in
called them.
Indianapolis. I covered that at Final Four,
Yeah. So, William, your take on the big picture. I mean, Kevin laid out a hard case to argue, but I mean, you might be agreeing with. I agree with what Kevin said.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you said, I believe that, Big Ten hasn't won a championship since 2000. I believe in that time span since then, they haven't even made it past the Elite Eight. There hasn't been, or something like that. I thought I saw stats or something like that. And that's why I'm probably not
Final
four.
Four.
Final Four, yeah.
Tom Izzo's been to 7 Final
Michigan
Fours.
State's been there,
Yep.
That's
He's
right.
a hell of a coach. Yeah.
Right. I think of, Michigan State as a league of their own most of the time. But anyways, but Purdue, I think, is probably the most balanced team right now. With Zach Edey on the inside, and then you have shooters around him with, Lawyer and some other guys around him. I think they're the most balanced team in the league right now. You could say UConn as well. But, really it's just about if you can contain Zach Edey and go up against him and make sure he doesn't go for 20 and 10 on you, you have a good shot of winning. And then you just have to also hope that the players around him don't shoot as well as they have been in the past.
Yeah. Bo Carter.
Hey, here's one thing. I'll give you a little analytics here. I did some research when Nate Oates spoke to the Tip-Off Club here in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago. He's an analytics guy. He's a former math teacher in high school, so he's all about the numbers. And so he was talking about the Ken Palm rankings and what matters when you study it over time. What are some factors that are common to Final Four teams, to national champions? I think it's 19 of the last 21 national champions were in the top 20 in both offensive and defensive efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And Auburn was there. Auburn was one of 6 teams across the country that was there until the Kentucky game. They dropped down to like 22 in offense. They were in the top 5 in defensive efficiency. So those are things to look for. When you're trying to figure out if you're doing a bracket, go look at the Ken Palm rankings. There's some good history there to support who you might want to pick to get in the Final Four and then to win it all.
Yeah, I'll add you one more thing. Okay. Something I was doing when I was doing my bracket last year to figure out who would win the national championship was I saw a site where, as you mentioned, like past few champions or whatever have been top 20 in offensive and defensive efficiency. They also have won an in-season tournament in the earlier part of the season in the non-conference slate. And that's what UConn did exactly just last year. They were a top 20 team in offensive and defensive efficiency, and they won their in-season tournament or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love these numbers. Bo Carter expand on it. It's like the stock market, the 200-day moving average. You see the trend, and I kept saying about Florida. They're leading the nation in rebounding. That's going to translate to wins. Todd Golden, hell of a coach. Bo, kind of add to what Kevin and William have said. This is great stuff.
Yeah, Kevin pointed out earlier, you can't get, and John Brady too, you can't get upset with the road losses. You just have to kind of, I'm still totally puzzled about the Auburn-Kentucky game. I think William summed up well, turnovers, just everything. And Bruce was good. I love to watch Bruce. One of these days, his head's going to explode on Friday. As Kevin
I think so.
Take a deep breath every once in a while. But at least he's not wearing his long coat like he used to when he was in Tennessee. Do that to sort of spite Vanderbilt.
Yeah, the bright orange Ray Mears blazer.
Yeah, the Ray Mears all coat there. But
yeah,
I totally agree. The SEC could have 9 teams. The Big 12 could have 9 teams. Boy, it's going to be there are going to be a lot of one-bid leagues. As Kevin, gosh, even the American and some of those. Pac-12's been a weird year this year. Great women's basketball, but they're all waving goodbye to the conference, I guess. So I don't know what it's really UCLA's very disappointing this year. So it's just really hard to boy. It's going to be tough to pick a bracket this year. I promise you.
Yeah, and hey, one thing to keep in mind, of course, is you always look for, and I think people are starting to suspect this or at least wonder this about Auburn. Are teams a creation of a great home court environment? Mm-hmm. How do they play when they get out of that? And Auburn has struggled somewhat most teams struggle on the road to some degree, but has a team won tough road games? Because look, every game's a road game in the NCAA tournament. Nobody's playing on their home floor. Now, if you're fortunate, as Alabama and Auburn were last year, you get to play in your home state and you get the home crowd advantage. And certainly that helped Alabama, which was better than both of the teams that played here in Birmingham in the first 2 rounds. But Auburn, certainly it helped in that opening round win against Iowa. And then they led Houston at halftime in the second round before Houston really ramped it up in the second half. Yeah. So, everybody's playing on the road. Who has shown that they can go on the road and beat a quality team? That's something it's really important, I think, when you're evaluating teams for the trying to win a bracket pool.
Yeah, I want to throw this one at y'all too. Dennis Gates, coach at Missouri, struggling this year, winless in the league. Now, next year in recruiting, they've already got 3 of the top 100 basketball signees in America. Did you know he has a $25 million buyout? I mean, there are football coaches that don't have a buyout like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, who put that to that AD that did that went to Arizona. Kind of like, I still don't know how Ross Bajork, I'm going to mispronounce his name because I'm mad at him, put that deal together with Jimbo Fisher. And now he's at Ohio State as their AD. Ryan Day.
Is that what you call failing upwards?
That's
he fell up the stairs. That's right. God, I'm going to tell you what, if you just parachuted in from, Pluto or Jupiter, you would love basketball hearing the 3 of y'all talk about it. And Coach John Brady, sorry about the technical issues, folks. I think it's a hangover from whatever happened yesterday. Bounce it around. We got a few minutes left. We're doing these new 1-hour shows. We're going to do some longer ones, shorter ones, different lengths. I want y'all to give me your SEC team or teams that you think will go the furthest in the tournament in 30 seconds or less. William, Bo, and then Kevin.
So I've got Auburn. I think Auburn's the best team to go probably the distance. Kentucky they're too young and they don't have the experience as much. Although you could say that, they get out in transition, score a lot of points, but I don't think their defense is ready. Tennessee, as much as I'd like to think that Connect could get them there, I just don't. I haven't until I see it. I'm not going to believe it. Right now it's Auburn. Since they're one of the top 3 teams in the SEC. South Carolina, they play too slow, and I think they're going to get beat when a really good 3-point shooting team gets there. So right now, my pick's Auburn.
All right, McLaughlin Group. Bo Carter.
Yeah, very quickly. Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, or Florida. I'm like John Brady and Kevin. Florida's got some really great athletes, and they might.
Yeah, they do.
If they get hot at the right time, they could go a long way.
Kevin.
Yeah, I think it's Alabama because they're so explosive offensively.
Yeah.
You can hold them down for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, but in a 5-minute span, you blink and you're down 10 because they've run off an 18-2 run or a 16-2 run. And then I think Florida as a bit of a dark horse because people aren't thinking of them as an elite team yet. But what have they won? 6 out of 8, something like that in the league.
7 of the last 8.
Came so close to beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa on Wednesday. They are poised, I think, to make a run. But if you ask me which team's going to go the deepest, I think most likely it's Alabama.
Yeah. I think Tennessee, we were up in Knoxville last week and Charlotte and Atlanta for about 9 days. Every Tennessee fan I talk to, I'll believe it when I see it. William grew up a Tennessee fan. He's at Auburn now. But that's the thing. Why does Rick Barnes struggle? 1 Final Four in all these years with elite talent, but 1 Final Four at Texas with Kevin Durant. I mean, Kevin, you got to. I mean, I'm asking.
Yeah, it's hard. Look, they've been so good. They've been again over the last 6 or 7 years. They've been right there with Auburn as the 2 best programs in the league. But he just hasn't gotten it done in the postseason. And I think in part, he's a defense-first guy. Yeah. He's a toughness and physicality kind of guy. And I don't know that they've had the offensive firepower or the guy like Dalton Connect, what he's done this year has been amazing. Again, a guy who came from relative obscurity and he turned into Larry Bird Jr. for a good part of this season. He's going to be first team all SEC and should. So he's got maybe some guys who can carry them offensively because that's what usually gets them beat. They go through long lulls offensively. So, but again, I'm kind of like everyone else. I want to see it before I can fully believe that they're going to make that postseason run.
Yeah. The one thing I like what you just said, Kevin. Auburn, are they a creation of a great home environment? And then what are they on the road? That's a takeaway from today's show. Bo, William, respond to it. I think Kevin threw something out there that is definitely the takeaway comment of this morning's show.
I think you totally. Kevin's right on about Rick Barnes. He's a great coach. Look at the record for all those years or whatever. Yeah. But just and man, it is just tough. Kevin and William probably agree. The team that's hottest during March is always the team. I mean, Connecticut might not have been the best team in the country last year. Purdue might have been, but Connecticut got hot at the right time. So it's like the World Series, everything else. It seems that follows that pattern.
There are Tennessee's almost like the Braves. No, I love the Braves, but I mean, last year they were the hottest team, won 106, 107 games. They had a week off because they won their division. Phillies kept those bats hot. I know Kevin's grinning. By the way, Bo, tell Kevin about the book you're writing about the Phillies.
Oh yeah, Kevin, you got Howie Bedell, the guy that broke Don Drysdale's 58 2/3. He had like 60 bats in the major leagues, but he had the famous RBI against Drysdale, and he was a coach on 3 World Series teams. Doing a book on him. I'll have to send you some copy on it soon to proof.
I would love to read it, Bo. That's exciting.
You'll get a laugh out of it. He's a great storyteller.
Very cool. Very cool. Hey,
thank you.
One game to watch, guys, on this subject: Auburn at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Is that next Wednesday, William? Huge game here in the stretch run. And look, Bruce Pearl's had a lot of success against Tennessee since he's gotten to Auburn. It's hard to say Bruce ramps it up anymore because he leaves it all on the sideline every game, as we said. But He said someone at the tip-off club said, "How many IVs do you get after a game?" And he didn't quite hear the question. He said, "Are you asking if do I sleep at night especially after a loss like Kentucky?" He said, "Do I sleep?" He said, "Of course I sleep. I'm exhausted after every game." He leaves it all out there, but they've been really good at Tennessee or against the Vols in Auburn, but they're going to probably most likely be without Jalen Williams. So that'll be a huge game for both teams to watch.
God, I mean, you're right. It will be. And, Rick Barnes, we were just in Knoxville. Then we went to Hickory. That's where you turn off I-40, go down, 77 or 85 to Charlotte there. But, God, the guy's a hell of a coach. Mm-hmm. And Tennessee basketball, Tennessee's they're into everything. But unbelievable stuff today, guys. Unbelievable. William Halliday, writer for the Auburn Plainsman, Bo Carter, great writer, Kevin Scarbinksky, getting y'all together and talking about all the stuff in college basketball, it makes sense. And you realize, you know what? Sometimes, Bruce Pearl has made Auburn relevant. It is incredible. And I do not see him going anywhere. I mean, put that, Kevin, just address it real quick. A lot of questions coming in. Louisville, all these schools going to come after him. And I know the donors at Auburn. You do too. And I know some new donors at Auburn. That nobody's going to match. I mean, nor will they match Alabama. If they want to keep somebody, they can do it, can't they?
Well, remember, just a couple of years ago, they gave Bruce Pearl what amounted to a lifetime contract, $50 million over 8 years.
Yeah.
And don't discount the fact, look, yes, there are big name programs that are going to come after guys like Bruce Pearl, Nate Oates. If Michigan comes open, you think Alabama won't sweat a little bit with Nate Oates' background up there? If Indiana comes open, Bruce Pearl coached at Southern Indiana, had great success there.
Yeah.
But don't discount this factor. Bruce Pearl, I don't know that he's ever said this publicly, but I feel confident in saying he wants his son, Steven, to succeed him as the Auburn coach.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know what all of the politics. I know some of the politics behind it, but he has elevated Steven to associate head coach before this year, raved about him when they announced that move. He very, very much wants that to happen. So obviously that's not, if he leaves for another program, I think that pretty much ends any possibility of that happening. And I don't know how likely it is regardless, but keep that in mind when these jobs come open. And again, there are going to be coaches in the SEC and in this state in particular whose names are going to be very hot in the coaching carousel rumor mill.
Yeah. Well, those are the kind of coaches you want, though. Everybody knows that. But financially, all these SEC schools have money. It was about a year ago this time, Mississippi State got a check in the mail from one of their alumni, an alumnus of the school in Houston for $100 million. You never know what's coming. It's just, but I mean, I think that college basketball, you can't not want to watch it. In the women's game, they are doing an incredible job of marketing and getting the fans and saying, hey, man, we love y'all. We appreciate you. I'd love to talk to Kim Mulkey or Johnny Harris or Dawn Staley about they absolutely get it on a level of, entertainers with these young girls there with the signs in the crowd. People better pay attention to that because years and years and years of thanking your fans and letting them know how much you appreciate them. Kevin, William, Bo, those are great stories to write about. And I see a paradigm shift. I'm going to predict this. In the coming years, you're going to see more coaches grateful for what they have. And I also predict we're going to have a lot of 28-year-old head college football coaches because the mass exodus is coming. The Chip Kellys, the Jeff Hafleys from Boston College. Don't kid yourself. Nick Saban left Alabama because he had a bunch of guys with their hands out after they lost to Michigan in the semifinals. It's like, I'm not Monty Hall, behind door number 3. It's not let's make a deal. We're going to see a lot of coaches leave college football, say, I'm done with this. And that's why we're going to fix NIL, the transfer portal, and all that stuff. you may think I'm crazy. Right now, it's just like the stock market after a significant pullback. It's always darkest before dawn. Get ready. All right, bounce it around real quick. Bo, tell them how they can follow you, William, and then Kevin, and then we'll get out of here.
No problem. At Bo Carter 52, sportspagedfw.com. And thanks for having me on today, Rob.
Always, man. William.
At Auburn Plainsman, follow my work on there. Also, we just created a new Twitter account for our podcast at Tiger Take Pod.
Thank you. Kevin.
At Kevin Scarbinksky. You can keep up with me in the Birmingham Lead. Scarbo Knows, the newsletter on Thursdays. That's the best way to follow me, at Kevin Scarbinksky. Thanks, Rob. This has been fun.
You bet, man. Executive producer Brendan Martin. Unbelievable. We're working through all the technical demons and everything like that. But I tell you what, Brendan, I
worked so hard that my earphone came off. But
That's right. But incredible job. I tell you what, you learn a lot. We got to get Coach Brady's phone issue worked out because he is so good. And he and Kevin, they have such a depth of knowledge of basketball, but incredible stuff. We got some great shows in store kicking off with you Monday morning. But anything you want to add, Brendan Martin, about the Buddy Martin show and all the great stuff at SECU?
No, we're going to talk this weekend, or I guess we have a meeting today. But we're going to make a big announcement on Monday about what we're going to do with our education of our audience, which is going to be exciting. We've got some really good stuff. We're working hard on planning out some good stuff with Rob and Buddy and myself, and we're going to be putting together some things to get you through until football season.
We'll make it. I'm excited.
All right, man. That's it. I'm just turning 50 this weekend, so that's how I'm going to go do that.
Brendan Martin.
All right. Take us out, Rob.
All right. Hey, look, man, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. Remember, the South is going to save America and college football and college sports. Follow your team, have their back, and go out and help others every day. That's what we're here for. Thanks.
Amen.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.